As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture these stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Jason Bahamundi, founder of Run, Try, Bike, is a passionate and accomplished endurance athlete dedicated to proving that there is a spot at the starting line for everybody and every body. With a background deeply rooted in the world of triathlons, running, and cycling, Jason has not only excelled in his personal athletic endeavors, but is committed to fostering a supportive and inclusive world for endurance sports. That led him to establish Run, Try, Bike, a platform that serves as a hub for enthusiasts to connect, share experiences, and access valuable resources. Jason's genuine enthusiasm for endurance sports continues to inspire individuals to pursue their goals and embrace the transformative power of an endurance sports lifestyle. So, Jason, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really love having you here.
Andrew, thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be a part of your show. I'm ready to roll.
Now, when I first read your bio and kind of what you do, I kind of got the David Goggins vibe a bit because you're a distance. Okay, I'm going to say it wrong. I'm going to let you explain it. I can hear it not coming out the right way to begin with.
No worries. Essentially, when you boil it all down, I'm an endurance athlete who loves swimming, cycling, and running for hours on end. It's my opportunity to get healthy and fit, of course, but it's also my opportunity to get away from the noise and the distraction that comes from being an entrepreneur, where email and text messages and social media notifications never seem to end. So I get out there and lace up my running shoes or get my bike on the road or jump in the water for hours. And it's a great opportunity to just get away from life for a moment, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that's really important. I know for me, that's my Zen moment, my gym moment, whether it's running, gym, whatever it is, phone is with me in case something goes wrong, but not on. I don't answer messages and kind of have my moment in the morning to get my mind going in the right direction. So I 100% understand what you're doing. And I think we need that as entrepreneurs, that moment to just kind of have our Zen.
Yeah. 100%. Like, I think, people don't understand that when you're an entrepreneur, your company is on constantly, right? And having that moment to get away is huge because it does allow you to reset your batteries. It allows you to get connected to the things that have been swirling around in your mind, but get interrupted because something else comes flying in. Whereas 9 to 5 corporate America, when I shut my computer down at 5 p.m. and left the office, I left it behind like that. I didn't think about it. I was done with it. There was really nothing left for me to do in that realm. But when you're running your own business, it just never ends.
Mm-hmm. And I was joking with a friend of mine one day that as entrepreneurs, our baseline level of stress is most people's panic, and handling really, which is essentially dealing. Being an entrepreneur is just dealing with problems all day and dealing with major issues, and the exercise is, I think, a huge part of it because it can really help us to manage and mitigate that stress. And I think it's a massive part of being an entrepreneur is mitigating that stress, right? Yeah,
100%. And I say I do it for hours on end, but honestly, for people who aren't interested in going for hours on end, go for 15 to 30 minutes. That will help you square away the thoughts that are bouncing around in your head. It'll help you sort of develop a path for either the rest of the day or the rest of the week or the rest of the month or quarter as well, because you have clarity in that moment where the only thing going on is running or strength training at the gym, as opposed to, like I said, the email inbox just dinging on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm. And I heard another guest say this, and this is something that I've done. I have a really strong meditation I've done meditation for years, and it's something that's really a big part of my world. I've gotten to the point where you can meditate while running. You don't have to be sitting saying "Om" in a couch somewhere. You get the same once you've gotten a good discipline of meditating and really good at it. You can get to that point where it now becomes integrated with other things, and so I think it's another kind of clearing the head, getting in a direction, that sort. Yeah. So I want to pivot for a second and ask, how did you get into this? How did you get into being an endurance athlete? What was the story behind that?
I was voluntold, if we're going to be honest. 17 years ago, my then wife, who's now my ex-wife, came home and said, we have to do this Westchester half marathon. I was living in Westchester, New York at the time. And I bluntly said, who's this we stuff? You got a mouse in your pocket? Like, I have zero interest in running anywhere. And she was like, no, it'll be good for me at the job, at the career, blah, blah, blah. And so I did. I just, I put on a pair of basketball shoes, not running shoes, cotton t-shirt, cotton shorts, and went to the local track. And I did a mile, quarter mile, huffing and puffing, quarter mile walking, quarter mile huffing and puffing, quarter mile walking. And I thought I was a champion. I thought I was king of the world. I was like, I did a mile. And that was kind of like the bricks of the path. And 17 years later, here I am still doing this stuff. And it amazes me on a daily basis that I'm still doing this stuff. And I love every minute of it.
Mm-hmm. Kind of sounds like my first 5K. I did it just to impress people. I'm just going to go do this now. I had no idea what I was doing. Basketball shorts, cotton tee. I had decent shoes, but yeah, they were not appropriate for what I was trying to do. And the course that I decided to do on my first one is near the city where I live, which has a lot of hills. And like the last tenth or the last something like 2/10 of a mile is all uphill after. I had two goals for that. I had to finish it without intervention from a medic. I did. I got those two goals. I hit it.
But that's winning right there, man. That is winning.
I met my goals. I wasn't last either, which was wonderful. I was dusted by an 85-year-old, but I wasn't last. But it was something where I think there's always that start to especially cardio and these long endurance. We always hear these things about, I ran a marathon, or I did I'm going to do a 5K this weekend because that's, I have some free time. I'm just going to go do that now. We don't realize that everyone starts from that. I got a quarter mile and I'm really happy about that one. And I didn't die and I didn't have to have a medic help me out and stuff like that. Yeah, I like people to hear those stories. So if, we all start from somewhere, and sometimes just getting out and doing 15 minutes is enough. Just do, right? Yeah.
That's it, man. Even with seasoned and veteran endurance athletes, let's say they just run, and I hate to use the word just, but let's say they're a runner and they think about participating in a triathlon, or maybe they want to go further than the distance they've already gone. It's literally about just getting started. Just do it. Take that first step in that direction. And before you know it, that ball rolls downhill and you're accomplishing things you never thought you could accomplish. And your world opens up and it changes because challenges now become fun to tackle, as opposed to paralyzing and staring you at the face, telling you can't do something.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's how far can I push myself in the morning? I run in the morning. I'm not good at it, but I do it. And it's like, okay, I'll look in the distance and say, okay, there's a landmark. I'm getting there. Come hell or high water, I'm getting there. And for me, it's that challenge in the morning of just pushing myself like that boots my day and just gets me going. Even on those mornings when I just don't feel like doing it, it's okay. No, I've accomplished something, that get that little extra dopamine hit. No,
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I think that I don't mean to interrupt you, but you said something interesting to me that caught me and made me think. So you said you get up and you do your workout in the morning, and a lot of people will need that set schedule. I'm a person who's flexible with their training when it comes to also running my business. And for your listeners who are just getting started in entrepreneurial land, like, do it the way that best fits you. Andrew gets up in the morning and does his workout. I'm more flexible. I'll do it at lunch. I'll do it in the evening. I do it when my mind is ready to do it, as opposed to having a set schedule. And that's just because that's how I operate. And for you, Andrew, the way you operate might be get up in the morning and do it and get it out of the way, because I know things are going to happen throughout the day that might change my plan of action. But I think it's just proof that there is no one right way to do anything, whether that's endurance sports or whether that's running a business, right? Do the things that are going to help you succeed, regardless of what somebody else is doing or how they're doing it.
And I think that's important is we hear there's a lot of emphasis put on you have to have this routine, or here's my morning routine, or here's this thing here. Understanding that whatever happens to work for us, just because it works for one person doesn't necessarily mean it works for somebody else. Sometimes we have to sometimes we have to do our own version of it, or say, okay, well, I like this part here and I like this part from what this person's saying. I like this part from what this person's saying, put it together and make it yours, Yeah.
Yeah, go through that trial and error process until you what works best for you. And honestly, it might change. You might go through a season where waking up first thing in the morning and working out is the thing that you do and it works great for you. And then you might have to take a trip one day to go visit a client, and that throws the schedule off, and you find that, okay, I'm going to get my workout in the evening, and you're like, man, I actually think I like this better. And, so go through those trial and error phases of incorporating your health and fitness into everything so that you can do what's working for you and what's best for you.
Exactly. And it looks different for everyone, and everyone's situation is going to be slightly different. I think it's more, instead of having a specific thing that you do, instead of having a specific schedule, it's the discipline to just do it, however that's going to work for you. And it's that mindset change that you have that happens. Yeah. So now you've taken being an endurance athlete and made it into something larger. And you started something really cool with that. Like it's your hat kind of alludes to it a little bit. Run, try, bike. Tell us a little bit about that and your platform.
Yeah, so we are the premier voice of the everyday athlete who is proving that there is a spot at the starting line for everybody and every body. And the emphasis for us is to get people active, to think to themselves, I can do that, because I believe that when you overcome a challenge in physical fitness, running your first mile, running your first marathon, completing your first triathlon, that translates to other parts of your life. For starting a business, you might look at that and think, there's no way I can do it. There's no way that I can be successful. And you pile these obstacles up in front of you. But when I go through and challenge myself to a training day and I get through it, then I know I can send an email to a client, right? Like tapping a few keys on a keyboard and hitting send is not going to physically challenge me the way running a mile might. And so if I can get through that physical challenge, I can clearly get through sending an email to a client or a sales pitch to a prospect, right? In order to have a business, you have to have sales. And a lot of times that's the thing that cripples people. And so I think there's a connection between the two in terms of getting through those obstacles. And so we decided that we wanted to take down the gatekeeping that tends to surround endurance sports. I'm not fit enough. You're too slow, you're not strong enough, your shoes are the wrong shoes, that bike is not the right bike, like all of these things that tend to happen in endurance sports. We wanted to tear those down. And so we are sharing stories of everyday athletes from all different backgrounds and in all different shapes and sizes, and proving to people that, yes, you too can get out there and participate in these sports. There's no doubt about it. And so we launched a business 3.5 years ago. We've told well over 250 stories in that time. We've gone from a print magazine to a digital magazine now, but we've now incorporated live interview shows with these athletes that become podcasts and YouTube shows as well. And so we want to reach people where they are and show them that there are people just like them doing the things that they think they cannot do, if that makes sense.
That does. And I think that's a valiant effort, is to just show people that sometimes it's just doing it, even if you're not good at it, even if it's, whatever the reasons behind it, whatever happens, that's one of the major things we have in business, is that often, I hear this said all the time, and I say it all the time, is business is like jumping off a cliff and making the parachute on the way down. And I think sometimes it's just that start, do. And we think that, oh, well, running is really hard. Not really. I mean, I've done it. I thought I would look, there's this one guy that runs around the, our neighborhood. This guy goes for like miles, and obviously like endurance runner. And I look at him every day he's out, and it's like, I could never do that. Well, not now. So, but you got to start somewhere, you got to keep going. Yeah. And I love the fact that you built a platform around really educating, and it's really more around educating, or what specific parts Like, what does it do? Is it just an educational platform, or will it help you find events, or what does it do specifically?
Yeah, so the idea was to create a better mousetrap, right?
Mhm.
So we have events on our site. We do have coaches tips. We have dietitians and registered uh, dietitians, excuse me, nutritionists writing articles. We have sports psychologists writing articles. And then we have the everyday athlete whose stories we tell. And the idea is to bring people in through one of those areas so they can see and hear and read about endurance sports and then go find an event that they want to register for. And then
Okay.
we also have what we call race reports. So you finish your event, tell us about it. Tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly about the event so that the next person that comes in to the mousetrap can find that event, can find information about that event, and then learn from other athletes as well as the experts in the industry about how to get better at the sports, how to get started in the sports as well.
Mhm.
And so we've kind of built this sort of come inside our house and then stay and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with us and chat and hang out and get information from a handful of different areas so that you can be a better athlete in the long run.
Well, that sounds incredibly cool, and I love the fact that you built a community around it because I'm a huge fan of communities, and I think that especially specific communities to something that you're interested in, learning from somebody because of their stories. I have a saying that whether an example of what to do, there are some people that are an example of what not to do. They're both really good examples, and I think it's by all those mistakes and all those things that we've messed up and said, "Oh, great, that wasn't a good idea." Though that's even more powerful way to learn is through that. It's nice that you've built this community around that. How did this platform start? Like, what was the story behind it?
So I was living in Dallas at the time of the pandemic. It was September 2020. And my mentor, he owned and I worked at a company called Travel Host. So as you can imagine with the pandemic, a company with the word travel in it is not good. And he said to uh, a gentleman by the name of Al Schoenberg and myself, hey, look, I've got to get rid of people in the company to try to make it survive. Are you guys willing to jump on the pirate ship with me and figure out where we're sailing and what bounty we can find and just be out there? And Andrew was the most fun I've ever had in corporate America. Like we stripped all the rules away, right? And it was like, let's just go figure this out. And in the midst of figuring this out, we were literally working in the Mexican Chamber of Commerce, like three dudes in the middle of this office while the Mexican Chamber of Commerce is conducting business all around us with NAFTA and all this high profile and important stuff. And he gets a phone call and he says, I think this phone call is for you. And Bill Schroeder is his name. He's a serial entrepreneur. And I can't thank him enough for actually handing me the phone when he could have just taken the call himself. And as it turns out, Texas Runner and Triathlete magazine was looking to sell their business at the time. The principal owner, the husband of the couple had passed away. And the wife was trying to sell the business because she had no intention of running it herself. After a couple of conversations, we didn't meet eye to eye. I hung up the phone and I looked at Bill and I don't need to buy that business. I can start one on my own. It was like an epiphany, right? Like the lightning struck and an epiphany happened. And I made a handful of phone calls to people asking them what could a new publication in the endurance space do that would set it apart and give it a chance at success. And under that advisement from those folks, we launched this business. And I cannot believe it. 3.5 years later, right? We're here, we're successful, we're telling more stories than ever before. And we actually have people coming to us now and saying to us, hey, I'd like to share my story, or businesses coming to us and say, hey, how do I advertise my product/service on your platform? And it's crazy to think about, and a large part of it comes from our ownership group being vulnerable with our audience. You talked about community. And in order for us to build a trusting community and a growing community, we had to be vulnerable. And so we share our stories, we share our successes, we share our failures as well. And that has been the groundwork for where we started and to where we have grown in those 3+ years.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And I can always tell a good story when it's going to start, when you start smiling after I ask how did it start? Because there's always a good story behind it. And sometimes it is those random moments that happen where it's like, you just, you get that epiphany moment where, the heavens open and the angels sing and everything just makes sense in that moment. And it sounded like that happened with you guys and, turned into something absolutely amazing. Right. Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. So I was a blogger back in the day when Google Blogger was the thing that you used. And I had built a following on Instagram as well. And I had been in, have been, I shouldn't say had been, I've been in sales and marketing in the media space for nearly 30 years. And
Mhm.
so it was like all of these things. Okay, I love to write. I'm an endurance sports athlete. I'm in sales and marketing. And they all just gelled together in that singular moment where I was like, I'm doing this. And I will say this for your listeners who are entrepreneurs just getting started. I said to myself, I'm going to invest this amount of money in this business. And if it lasts one day, so be it. I gave it a shot and I wasn't successful, but what could I have learned from it? And if it continues to go, then awesome. And it's continued to go, but I had to tell myself I'm willing to invest in this because I think a lot of times entrepreneurs get started and they don't invest in their business. And the cruel truth is if you're not investing in your business, you've got a hobby.
Mhm.
And I think you have to invest in your business. And that doesn't always mean monetary. It just might mean time, right? Where you're doing the things, you're doing the research, you're reaching out to people to have conversations. But you're going to have to invest in the business in order to have a business.
Mhm. And invest on a much higher level than you've ever had to invest in anything else before. And it's like we were talking about the balance, the work-life balance between a 9 to 5 and an entrepreneur are just completely different. Not just different, they're different mindsets. There's a reason why we answer emails at 7 p.m. on a Saturday, is that we're so passionate about what we do. It's just a totally different world. And I think that's something
One,
that early entrepreneurs, you have to learn that and how to
yeah,
deal.
100%. Yeah, like you need to get away from the business. You need to reset. You
Mhm.
need to recharge. There's zero doubt about that. But honestly, on a Saturday, we'll go out and work out, and then I'll come back and I'll work on business for 2 to 3 hours.
Mhm.
It's not my entire Saturday, and I still go
Mhm.
out to dinner in the evening. But yeah, I come back from working out and I work for 2 to 3 hours on the company. And it sets me up for success for the upcoming week. There's no doubt about that. But it's definitely nothing I would have ever have done in corporate America, right?
Yeah.
And it's that investment of time on a Saturday or a Sunday or at 8 p.m. at night when the idea strikes you, right? Like how often have you had that, Andrew, where you're like
Oh,
sitting on the couch, right? And you're like, oh my goodness. And you bust out your phone and you type a note, right? Like
Yep.
and then sometimes you go to bed and you wake up the next day and you're like, what a terrible idea this is. Delete.
Yep.
but when you have that moment of, oh my goodness, this is going to be the thing, you've got to capture it. And sometimes that happens at 8 o'clock at night, or sometimes it might happen at dinner with friends and family. And you have to say, excuse me, I've just had this epiphany based on what you just said, and I need to take a note on this, right? I'm not ignoring you, but that's what entrepreneurs do is, I often refer to us as tinkerers, right? We tinker with things constantly. And, in that moment, you're going to have to tinker with your business and be like, pardon me, I have to step away for a few minutes to either take a call, send an email, write a note down. I often tell my wife while we're driving, okay, record this, right? Because like the idea hits and I can't possibly type it while I'm driving and be like, record this. And so then we'll come back after wherever we're going and it'll be like, okay, this is a great idea. Let's keep moving forward. Or like I said earlier, like, what a bad idea. Hit delete, move on.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's always 2 o'clock in the morning for some reason is when all that stuff hits. My brain goes into overdrive and it's like, I got these great ideas and this whole vision just came. Trying to get it onto something is really difficult at that hour. But you do it. And then you're right. There are some mornings I wake up, it's like, wow, that was not a good use of that time. Or other times it's like, dude, that was brilliant. Yep. I call it visionary mode. And I love visionary mode because I am a true visionary. I work as an implementer when I have to. But my mode is just getting out there, doing, seeing what we can tinker with, seeing what we can do. Adam Savage has a great saying that I love repeating, and that is, I reject your reality and I substitute my own. But But I think, as entrepreneurs, this is one thing I say quite a bit. And I think as entrepreneurs, that's our mission really should be disrupting in a good way, pushing boundaries, trying to say, no, this doesn't work for me. I don't, this isn't working. Let's find something new. And I think that's a really special place that we have as entrepreneurs in the world, is being able to say that and being able to push new things and different ways of thinking. Because we're wired differently. I mean, we're wired totally differently.
100%. I was going to ask you about this. What do you think the one trait is that you have that sets you apart from folks who don't enter into the entrepreneurial space?
Intensity, I think, is if I had to pick one, that would be a word that I would use. I get really intense about one specific thing. Like for me, it's keynotes. I will eat, sleep, breathe. If I hear a good one, I want to map it out and see what it is. I want to see these processes and how to make this work. How can I bring this to a much larger audience? It's that real intensity that we have for what we are. You don't get that in a 9 to 5. I would not, if I was in a state of 9 to 5, I would, and I haven't been for over a decade at this point. I wouldn't be able to bring that intensity. It's you go, you do your thing. I don't want to say a slave. You're a robot. You do your thing. You might like your job. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have that level of intensity that we do. I mean, if you're not annoying the people around you who are not entrepreneurs with your thing, you're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
I don't talk to my family about keynotes because they don't want to hear it. Because they're not they're not entrepreneurs. They don't understand it. But that's also why, as an entrepreneur, I like to hang out with other entrepreneurs. I like doing podcasts like this because, I mean, you, Jason, as an entrepreneur, get it. You understand.
100%. And the word I would have used is inquisitiveness, which is also a form of intensity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to always ask questions. Why this? Why that? How's this? How's that? What about this? What about that? And asking those questions is a form of intensity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes my wife, who is an entrepreneur as well, will be like, you are like the 6-year-old kid. You keep asking why, like, stop asking questions. And that's a form of intensity, to your point. And I just think that to what you just said, and when I was working 9 to 5, like, I didn't have that inquisitiveness to the level that I have it as an entrepreneur and running my own business, where I'm constantly asking questions, where I'm looking at the landscape and the competition and wondering, why are they doing it that way? How are they doing it that way? What are they trying to accomplish? And oftentimes I look outside of our own world and I look at other businesses and try to figure out what it is that they're doing that we can incorporate into ours so that we can be successful. And so I think, you use the word intensity, I use the word inquisitiveness. I think they're the same thing in this scenario. Yeah. But I do think it's what sets apart the entrepreneurial mindset from the corporate America employee mindset, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that too. If I'm sitting around people that are kind of 9 to 5 workers, oftentimes I'm misunderstood when hey, my friend his company just cleared $1 billion and it's doing really well. It sounds like bragging to people in that world, but to us, it's more like, I want to see how you did it, dude. That's really cool. Let's go do some really cool stuff. Yeah. And again, wondering, how did you do it? What did you do? What happened to make it work that way? What's the story behind it? What's this? You're right, that inquisitiveness of just asking a billion questions that you would never ask to somebody who wasn't an entrepreneur, because they just wouldn't understand how to take that, right? Yeah. So yeah, I'm one of those. I would rather hang around in a room of entrepreneurs and just hear a whole bunch of cool stuff and just kind of try to see what they're doing, compare notes, what's working, yeah. Inquisitiveness definitely is part of that.
Yeah. Like when people are like, I don't want to know how the sausage is made. I'm like, are you kidding me? Get me in the back room. I want to know exactly how the sausage is made.
What kind of mix of meat are you using? Dude,
yeah,
spice this is really good. What's going on? That casing was awesome.
Why would you use that? Right? Like, why would you use that?
Exactly. And when people come up with something new that is just really cool, and we all want to dig in and see how they did it. And that's another part. I love that. I love green rooms. Like if I'm speaking at an event, I love sitting in the green room in the back and just talking to all of these really high level entrepreneurs. And there's some really awesome conversations that happen. It's a cool thing. Yeah. So as we're getting towards the end of the podcast here, I do have one question that I ask everyone. And that is, what is one book or podcast that has had a significant impact on your life?
The book that has had a significant impact on my life is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I've read it numerous times. Like I've got probably at this point, every page is probably dog-eared. So it's kind of pointless to have all the dog ears in there since every page is bent. And on a quarterly basis, I will watch his TED Talk. And the reason why it's had such an impact, Andrew, is he clearly says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And so you have to have a really strong why to engage people in conversation for them to want to purchase from you. And so when you ask me about Run, Try, Bike, I led with our why. And I do that with every single conversation I have with a prospect, and every single conversation I have with an athlete that we're interviewing. And we tell them we are the premier voice of the everyday athlete, proving that there is a spot at the starting line for everybody and every body. And I do that because of the impact that Simon Sinek's book and TED Talk video has had on me. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do. And he goes into all kinds of explanations about how so many people showed up to the Mall on Washington for Dr. Martin Luther King's speech when there was no thing as social media. How did those people get there? Why did they go there? Talks about TiVo and DVRing. He talks about Apple versus HP and the MP3 player. And it is an amazing set of examples that every entrepreneur can listen to or read and apply to their company. And it will make a big difference to their business.
And I think it's interesting, as part of my mapping process, when I'm writing a keynote or a TED Talk for somebody, the very first question I ask is, why are you doing this? Like, what's your why? What's behind it? Because I've had a lot of people come to me going, I think I just need to get a keynote, and they don't understand why they need to do it. And I know that that's the driving force behind it. Before I say, like, what kind of an audience are you doing? What are the topics you want to hit? What are the stories behind it? Why? So I 100% agree with that. And we've had a couple of other guests say why that book, Simon Sinek's book, as being their pivotal book, because it is really important.
I'm going to ask you another question.
Sure.
And this comes from my podcaster background too, as well as an entrepreneur that I want to ask questions. How often, percentage wise, do you have to ask that same client a second time, what is your why? Because the first one just doesn't resonate. It's not strong enough.
I'd say about 50%. Just my thought, because a lot of people, they're not expecting that question. They go into this as a transaction.
Yep.
And so what they do is they say, a marketer told me I need a keynote. Okay. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of keynotes, but there's a point when it's a step back. Okay, great. Why? Like you said, we're inquisitive. We should be inquisitive, and by nature we're inquisitive. And it's, why are you doing this? Well, I need to share my story. Okay, why? And it's an amazingly powerful question, and it takes sometimes a little bit for us to get through. Why are you doing this? And let's start to define why. Right? Yeah.
It's amazing. I was on another podcast a number of months ago, and the host asked me why I was in endurance sports, why I started the business. And I gave them an answer that I thought was really good. And they said, no, but seriously, why are you doing this? And it was the emphasis on, why are you doing this? And it opened up something inside of me. And I gave her a completely more passionate answer than I did previously, right? And I think that's another cool thing about going on podcasts and having conversations and talking to other people is the question they ask, especially if it's a follow-up, might pull more out of you than the initial question that you can then apply to your business and be like, this is why we're doing this. And it might literally change the trajectory of your business because you're examining it a little bit deeper than just surface level.
Well, and it's something that I often say, where we're all doing our version of something based on sources that have been done before. I don't think there's a whole lot that we're doing that is 100% truly novel. We're doing our version of something, and you can come up with something pretty cool and still have it be take a little from here, a little from here, a little from here, a little from here, and come up with my own, right? And I think that to differentiate ourselves, one of the most unique ways, and one of the things that people can't mimic, is your experience and your story. So having that, why I do this, why am I, why am I even, why am I doing what I do? We can't, having that is a really foundational part. And I think it really helps us set each other apart. So, yeah. Well, Jason, thank you so much. This was an awesome episode. I had a lot of fun. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And we need to make your podcast an extended version so we could talk for hours on end, because I know we could.
Absolutely. We'll have to see about having you back out again, man. I got to go in another different direction because that would be fun.
I am totally ready for it.
Sounds good, man. You have a great rest of the day today.
Thanks, Andrew. You too.
Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Jason, check out the link in the description.